Learning a Florida woman who shot her neighbor through the door will not be charged with murder. The state attorney says there is not enough evidence to warrant a murder charge against Susan Lorincz. However, he is charging her with manslaughter and assault. She shot her neighbor, Ajuka Owens, June 2nd when Owens went to her apartment and confronted the woman about yelling at her kids and throwing something at them.
Hi everyone, I'm your host, owner, and creator of The Mix. Welcome to my channel. Welcome. Thank you all for tuning in to The Mix. Like this video, share this video, and subscribe to my channel for those who are digitally passing by. Also, let's engage in the comment section. Continue to drop comments. I need to know your thoughts and opinion on this topic. Yes, as you can see what this video is going to be about, insufficient evidence for murder 1 and 2. As you can see, and based off of the clip I just played, the prosecutors in Florida, Ocala, Florida, I think that's how you say it or whatever, they basically stated that Susan Lorincz, who shot Ajuka Owens, they call her AJ, shot and killed her through her own door about a month or so ago, and I believe AJ was a mother of 4 or 5. Well, prosecutors stated that there is not enough evidence. There's insufficient evidence to upgrade the charges to murder 2. So they're going to continue with the manslaughter charge, which is, in my opinion, a weak charge. I'll go ahead and go over that as well and share some screens with you all. I need for you all to listen to this video from beginning to end before I continue with my discussion, opinion, and commentary. Yes, listen to this video from beginning to end. And if you are interested in donating, go ahead and check out my description section and you will find all donation information there and you can donate. Okay, back to Susan Lorincz, this white lady in Florida who shot AJ on. This has been a long-going dispute with the two for about a year issue. Seems like Susan has had an issue with the kids in the community, not just black kids, I think a lot of different kids. So it's to my understanding that there has been reports that this white lady basically stating that she harassed the kids in the community, and there was some racial comments and this and that in the community towards certain children. And Susan is citing that the children were, I guess, running amok, being disrespectful, etc., which that is no reason to be racist towards anyone. There is no reason at all to be displaying any type of racism, period. But that's a whole nother subject for a whole nother day. However, my concern is the prosecutors, how they cherry pick things. And if you head on over to my video section, you'll find a lot of different videos I've done content on regarding different legal related topics and how the double standards or disparities in the way prosecutors prosecute, the way law enforce, so, and most of the times how they cherry pick. So this is just an example of that, where the prosecutors declined upgrading charges to second-degree murder. And as I stated, I think first-degree and second-degree should have been on the table for this, based on the circumstances leading up to the shooting. And what I mean by this is there has been an issue with this murder for about, a year or so, according to, alleged reports by people in the community, the kids, and I think a couple of 911 calls were made. So between the different reports by everyone in the community and this ongoing feud for about a year or so, and I'm just estimating, I believe it was about a year or so. In my opinion, this was possibly premeditated. You can't begin to tell me that the prosecutors couldn't find enough evidence based off of, from interviews, affidavits, videos, phone calls, all of that. They couldn't find enough evidence to prosecute this murderer with murder 1 and murder 2. No, I'm not buying that it was insufficient evidence. But let me go ahead and share my screen and I'll come back more with my commentary and opinion about this. Okay, first I want to go over the elements of second-degree murder according to Google. According to Google, Florida statutes outline second-degree murder as the unlawful killing of a human being when perpetrated by any act eminently dangerous to another and evincing a depraved mind regardless of human life, although without any premeditated design to effect the death of any particular individual. So that's second-degree murder. Keep that in mind. Okay, according to Fox 35 Orlando, no murder charges for Susan Lorincz and shooting death of Florida neighbor through door, state attorney says. So I'm going to go over some excerpts from this article. Attorney has officially filed criminal charges against Susan Lorincz after she allegedly shot and killed her neighbor AJ Owens following a reported dispute with her children. And again, you guys, based off of reports and all of that, this dispute has been ongoing for about a year. It's being alleged. So even based off of some of the witness interviews in terms of people in the community, when I say witness, you got people in the community, basically they're on the ground, they know what's going on. And I think I seen a clip early on when the situation happened, that it was a few people did interviews stating that how the murderer Susan, how she was towards the kids in the communities. And this has been ongoing for a substantial amount of time. So the article further cites the 58-year-old woman has been charged with 1 count of manslaughter with a firearm and 1 count of assault. State Attorney William Glasson said in a news release she faces up to 30 years in prison after she allegedly fired a shot through her unopened front door following a reported dispute with Owens' children on June 2nd. The state's attorney said, however, 1 count of misdemeanor assault, 1 count of misdemeanor culpable negligence, and 1 count of misdemeanor battery were not filed. Ooh, they are just cherry picking away. They are minimizing a lot of her charges. This is an example of prosecutors attempting to color inside the lines in their own mind, and they are really doing their due diligence, surprisingly. So they're taking their time investigating. Now, I think the murderer, Susan, she was not arrested immediately. I think they interviewed her twice. So she was at home for about, 4 days, maybe 5 at the most, before they issued an arrest warrant. Okay, let me continue. The state attorney also did not file a charge for second-degree murder, citing insufficient evidence, despite a push from Owens' family to upgrade the original charges, and rightfully so. And I agree with the Owens family. I say first and second degree. So if this goes before a jury, that's if Susan the murderer does not plead guilty. If she cops a plea, then this is not going to trial. None of that by a judge or jury. So I don't know. She might end up copping a plea because she doesn't have enough finances, to my understanding, to even fight this case. She's been appointed the public defender. Okay, let me jump down here. Why Susan Lorincz wasn't charged with second-degree murder. Sworn testimony. So this is it. This is key, you guys. So when I say cherry picking, and based off of so many cases, so many examples, we can go tit for tat all day, and that's unfortunate, because when it comes to melanated versus non-melanated, with the judicial system, prosecutorial tactics, and all of that, even law enforcement and their investigations and all of that stuff, there's a huge difference, a double standard. So why Susan was not charged with secondary murder is the cherry on top in terms of their loophole to not charge Susan the murderer with second degree or first degree murder. Let me read this. Sworn testimony from Owens' children pointed to the absence of necessary elements of the charges not filed, the state attorney said. And remember, I read what second degree murder was. So let me continue. The skate Lorincz allegedly threw did not strike the child, a necessary element of the battery charge. Another child said he was not in fear and required an element of assault, and that's that assault charge. Accordingly, the legal requirements to establish the crimes of battery and assault cannot be met, and those charges cannot be filed. The state attorney said in the release, the crime of misdemeanor culpable negligence was not filed because there is no evidence to establish that the defendant knew the child was with his mother when she shot the victim in this case. Wow. You see how they chipped away all of that? So that's why they couldn't charge Susan the murderer with second degree murder, because all of this went together with that. Owens' family has been vocal about Susan the murderer's charges, saying they believe the charges should be upgraded to second degree. The state said there is insufficient evidence to prove the woman had a depraved mind. Said there is insufficient evidence to prove the woman had a depraved mind, a required element of second degree murder. Now they want to continue to do like I said, their due diligence. So they going over each piece of the element. Man, I'm telling you all, prosecutors usually, okay. Okay, let me continue. Depraved mind requires evidence of hatred, spite, ill will, or evil intent toward the victim at the time of the killing, the state attorney said. Okay, let's pause right here. I believe she had that through the children. The children are an extension of the mother. They've had an encounter before. Come on now, state's attorneys. You all couldn't come up with all this evidence, my opinion, an immense, in my opinion, amount of evidence to connect first and second degree murder with the crime that was committed. It is. The circumstances that led up to that day, the kids, the year-long feud, that's what it seems like, the year-long, the back and forth, cops being called. You can't tell me, especially with the affidavits, if you round up a lot of witnesses and get do your job. Come on now. I can guarantee you, everyone, if this was a melanated situation, things would be different. And they probably wouldn't even have enough evidence. No cooperation. But they sure will create a story to match whatever charges they are citing. Okay, given the facts in this case, aiming a firearm at the door and pulling a trigger is legally insufficient to prove depraved mind. What about the phone call she made to the police? Oh my gosh, I just... Okay, so that's that. So we went over second degree murder, went over depraved minded. I'm at a loss for words. I really am. It is a travesty in terms of this is not justice for AJ. And do you all believe, drop it in the comment section, do you believe Susan the murderer is going to take this to trial with a public defender? I don't think she's going to take it to trial. I do not believe Susan the murderer is going to take it to trial. The public defender is probably going to try to convince her, to cop a plea. So I do not believe she is going to take this to trial. That's just my opinion. But let me go ahead and share another screen with you all. OurLawGroup.com. What are the degrees of homicide in Florida? So I just want to go over this really quickly to try to help gain a better understanding of the first degree, second degree murder, and also manslaughter. While murder and homicide are often used interchangeably, they are actually different concepts that call for a bit of explanation and clarification. A murder charge is a serious matter that could lead to a punishment of life in prison or even the death penalty. In Florida, homicide is divided into murder 1 and second degree murder, with first degree murder being the most serious, and that's like intentional, as well as voluntary and involuntary manslaughter. The differences between these charges can be slight but important, particularly in your legal defense if you've been charged with such a crime. First degree murder in Florida. First degree murder occurs when someone commits a premeditated murder or a felony murder. A premeditated murder is when someone plans in advance to kill another person and intentionally carries out that plan up to and through completion. Felony murder is when an individual kills another during the commission of a felony. So that means if somebody committed a crime, their intent was to commit a crime like robbery or whatever, or even if they beat up someone and the person ended up dying, so, or kidnapping or trafficking. So that's felony murder when someone dies during a crime like kidnapping or robbery or, substance controls. Punishment of first degree murder are either life in prison without the possibility of parole or death. Second degree murder is when, and this is for Florida, you guys. So second degree murder is when an individual with depraved or evil mind murders another person, or when a person is an accomplice to a felony murder. Murder with a depraved mind is when a person kills someone by dangerous act that shows no regard for human life. So they're saying that Susan the murderer did not demonstrate a depraved mind. In my opinion, she did. Her intent, before she called 911, her intent was to, and before she loaded the gun. The difference between this charge and first-degree murder is the person's intent to kill a particular person. In my opinion, Susan the murderer, her intent was to kill AJ. Oh gosh, I don't get this. The difference is manslaughter is less serious, is meaning a weaker murder charge. Manslaughter is less serious than murder, but still a serious charge. The difference between murder and manslaughter is malice, i.e. evil or hatred. Manslaughter is committed without malice of forethoughts. So they're basically stating that Susan the murderer did not have the intent to kill AJ, which is to me bullshit. Excuse my French. In Florida, manslaughter is voluntary or involuntary. Voluntary manslaughter is when a person commits an intentional act that is neither justified nor excusable that results in the death of another. Involuntary manslaughter is where someone engages in negligent or reckless conduct that results in the death of another person. Penalties for manslaughter are similar to the penalties for murder in the third degree. So I wonder, is Susan the murderer charged with voluntary or involuntary manslaughter? Either or, both, to me, is weak. Very weak. Okay, everyone, so what are your thoughts? Do you believe that the charges the state prosecutors trumped up, pun intended, is weak? I believe it's weak. I believe it's giving Susan the murderer a lifeline. However, I do not believe Susan the murderer will even take this to trial. She will probably cop a plea. But if she does take this to trial, I do not see a jury convicting her on under manslaughter, especially how the prosecutors are painting this narrative out to be. It seems like they're just focusing on this incident, the day of the situation. They're not focusing on all the events that led up to that. They're not focusing on all the affidavits. And if you do get witness affidavits, and based off of the interviews I've seen with some of the people in the community, there's a ton of evidence to paint a picture of intent, either first or second degree murder. And let me share one more final screen with you all. Fox 35 Orlando, some excerpts from this article. Ocala woman bought gun after previous incident with AJ Owens, affidavit says. So they do have affidavits, not witness affidavits, but an affidavit. Ocala woman bullied kids prior to shooting. And remember I was telling you all, there's been reports about incidents leading up to this, how these interactions, these volatile and toxic interactions were between the kids, the kids, the community. It's just, she was just a nuisance, in my opinion, and a racist. Okay, neighbors say Susan Lorincz murderer bullied the kids who played outside in their Ocala neighborhood on multiple occasions. She also called the police on the children several times prior. So, of course, as a child, you're going to go get your parents. You're supposed to. Okay, the article further cites more details have been released in the Ocala shooting that left AJ Owens dead after her neighbor Susan Lorincz allegedly shot her through her front door. She didn't allegedly shoot her. She did. That's fact right there. A newly released arrest affidavit. Okay, this is what that was. An arrest affidavit details witnesses' accounts. Leading up to the deadly shooting, including 2 juveniles who told deputies they saw Owens get shot after banging on Susan the murderer's door. She bought a gun year earlier after the altercation with AJ Owens. Susan the murderer told deputies that she bought a gun a year ago for protection after another alleged altercation with Owens. She also said that she used to be afraid of guns. This lady is not wrapped too tight and a racist. When deputies entered Susan the murderer's home, they found a single shell casing on the kitchen counter imprinted with Blazer 380 also. Detectives said that this was consistent with Susan the murderer's statement that she fired the gun from the kitchen. In the bedroom, deputies say they found a small trash can by the bed filled with papers. On top of the papers in the trash can, deputies found 2 handguns that were on top of each other. Article further cites there was a magazine inserted one live round inside the chamber with live ammunition in the magazine, and the gun was in a soft holster, the arrest report shows. She possibly researched stand your ground self-defense laws. Possibly my ass, she did. After being detained by deputies on day of the shooting, well, it's alleged that she did. To my understanding, she did research that. It's just like in the Travis Rudolph case. Jezebel Dominique Jones, she was researching accessory to murder and all that. You know, come on now. Let's keep it real with these articles. Okay, so the article further cites, after being detained by deputies on the day of the shooting, Susan the murderer had her phone for approximately 2 hours while she sat in the officer's patrol car. Deputies said during the time, Susan the murderer can be seen briefly using her phone. Deputies said that they could not determine what Susan the murderer was doing on her phone during that period of time. When Susan the murderer used the words reasonable and prudent during her interview, detectives asked her why she used that verbiage. She said she researched self-defense information on the internet on the same day of her second interview. Oh my goodness. She also admitted to possibly researching stand your ground and defense laws in the recent past. She also admitted to swinging the umbrella at the juveniles on the day of the shooting. Okay, there you have it. So you mean to tell me prosecutors couldn't use this arrest affidavit? That's what I keep saying. Cherry picking. Double standard, the disparities in prosecutorial tactics. So you mean to tell me prosecutors couldn't use all of this to charge Susan the murderer with murder 1 and murder 2 and let the jury have its way and go in there and prosecute her for the crime that she did against AJ Owens, who's no longer here, whose kids are not getting justice because the charges are weak? It goes to trial, a jury might just not convict Susan the murderer. I'm preparing you all for that. If Susan the murderer does not cop a plea, I do not believe the jury, any jury, will convict her of manslaughter. Because I do not believe manslaughter is going to fit what totally happened. The prosecutors are not going to go in there against Susan the murderer. Let's just keep it 1,000 and transparent. They're not. They're not going to go in there and they're going to paint a picture like from day of or what happened. They might touch on a little argument here or there, but they're not going to use all details. They're not. Because look how they went about in charging Susan the murderer with manslaughter. They're cherry picking. Insufficient evidence for murder 1 and murder 2. They are cherry picking. The prosecutors are. This is a travesty. This is not justice. And this is not what justice looks like. And this is not what a strong prosecution looks like. You can't tell me. You could not get enough information, circumstantial evidence, interviews, videos, phone calls, all of that, even her statements, Susan the murder statements, to charge her with first or second degree murder or both. This is complete bull. So let me know your thoughts. Drop a comment. Let's engage in the comment section. Thank you all for supporting the mix. Like this video, share this video. But I'm going to go ahead and go over manslaughter more in depth in my next video about this topic. So stay tuned, you all. Thank you all for supporting my channel. Let me know your thoughts. Do you believe Susan the murderer is going to take this to trial? Or do you believe Susan the murderer is going to cop a plea? I believe she's going to possibly cop a plea. And if she takes it to trial, there is a strong chance, in my opinion, a jury won't convict Susan the murderer on manslaughter. Because you know why? The prosecutors is going to fumble intentionally the case, in my opinion. They're doing it already. They are. Manslaughter, weak ass charge. Like this video, share this video. Thank you all for supporting the mix, and I will talk to y'all soon. Bye.